What if I told you that a man's desire to chase, to pursue, to hunger for you has less to do with what you do for him and more to do with what you awaken within him? Most women are taught from an early age to please, to soften, to give, to mold themselves into something lovable. Yet ironically, it is not the woman who bends that stirs something primal in a man. It is the one who stands, still and sovereign, refusing to be moved by anything but truth. Deep in the architecture of male psychology lies a hunger, not just for connection, but for the mystery of the feminine. Carl Jung called it the anima, man's unconscious image of woman. Not any woman. The woman. The one who lives in his dreams, who seems to know him without needing him, who doesn't beg for love but evokes it simply by being. She is not the woman who over-explains, not the one who apologizes for taking up space, not the one who texts first out of anxiety. She is the woman who knows exactly what to say to awaken something ancient in him. And it's not manipulation, it's magnetism. So what happens when you speak from that place? When your words come not from fear of abandonment, but from the depth of a self that has faced her shadows? He will chase you. Like wildfire seeks oxygen, like night craves the moon. But before we dive into the words, those three alchemical phrases that touch something raw in a man's psychopause, because this is not just about him, this is about you. About the part of you that's tired of giving your light away in exchange for scraps of affection. About the part of you that remembers who you were before you learned to shrink. You see, some women wait their whole lives to be chosen, to be seen, to be told, "You're the one." But the woman who understands herself as the source, who speaks with the authority of her own wholeness, she doesn't wait to be chosen. She becomes the one worth choosing. And that is what these words are about. But words alone mean nothing if they don't come from her. The archetypal feminine who has danced with her shadow, who no longer needs to scream to be heard, who understands that true power never chases, it draws in. So the question is not just, what should I say to make him chase me? The deeper question, the only question is, who am I when I speak these words? Because if you're still speaking from fear, if you're still aching for him to validate you, to complete you, to finally rescue the aching girl inside you, then no phrase in the world will make him stay. But if you speak from the woman who has met herself, who has mourned, healed, burned, and risen, then your words will not just be heard. They will haunt him. He won't be able to forget you, because you won't just be another woman. You will be the woman, the muse, the mirror, the fire. So when you say to him, "I trust myself more than I trust your words," you are not pushing him away. You are summoning him to rise. When you whisper, "I don't need you to choose me, I've already chosen myself," you are not closing the door. You are opening a portal. And when you say, "I feel safest when I'm true to me," you are not asking for safety. You are declaring your sovereignty. These words are spells, not because they manipulate, but because they reveal. They reveal you, the woman he's been seeking without even knowing it, the one who doesn't flinch when he pulls back, the one who doesn't abandon herself just to be loved. This is your power. It always has been. But most women are taught to fear it, to silence it, to trade it for approval, security, or a fleeting connection that leaves them emptier than before. You were never meant to be small. You were never meant to beg. You were meant to become, to rise through the ashes of every man who didn't see you, every moment you betrayed yourself, every time you swallowed your truth. And when you do, when you stop chasing and start choosing, when you speak not to win love but to honor your essence, something extraordinary happens. He begins to chase you not because he's addicted to the game, but because he feels, perhaps for the first time, that he's glimpsed her, the woman who doesn't need to be saved, the woman who can walk away, the woman who knows. If this resonates deep in your bones, if a part of you is stirring, remembering, then stay with this. Because this isn't just about attraction, it's about transformation. And the next words you speak, they may change everything. A man's instinct to pursue is not logical. It is not measured. It is not even deliberate. It is primordial. It is stirred not by comfort, but by contrast, by a woman who evokes both familiarity and mystery, softness and steel. He does not chase because she plays games. He chases because something in her feels like truth, and yet he can't quite grasp it. Carl Jung taught that the psyche seeks wholeness through symbols, and to a man, a deeply feminine woman grounded in her self-trust and unapologetic in her voices, a living symbol. She mirrors the parts of himself he has not yet integrated. She doesn't just attract him, she activates him. But here's the paradox. The moment you begin chasing him over, texting, over, explaining, trying to decode his every silence, you step out of that archetype. You cease to be a mystery. You become strategy. And he does not chase strategy, because deep down, what a man is chasing is not just a woman. It is the feeling she gives him when she stands in her worth. So, when you say, "I trust myself more than I trust your words," you pierce his ego, not in cruelty, but in clarity. You are saying, without anger, "I will not betray my intuition for your comfort." And this unsettles him not because you're rejecting him, but because you are introducing a boundary, a sacred feminine boundary that says, "I see you, but I see myself first." Do you understand how rare that is? Most women, especially those raised to be pleasing, fear boundaries. They equate them with rejection, with disconnection. But boundaries are not walls. They are invitations, an invitation to relate to you as an equal, not as an owner. And a man who is capable of depth, who has done any inner work, will feel this. He may not articulate it, but he will feel it. In that moment, something stirs, something primal and protective, not because he sees you as weak, but because he sees you as worthy. He begins to wonder, who is this woman who trusts herself that much? You see, we live in a time of paradox. Women are told to be empowered, but still encouraged to prioritize male attention, to be independent, but still measured by how desirable they are. This split fractures the feminine psyche, and many live in quiet confusion, wondering, am I too much? Am I too cold? Too soft? Too strong? But what if the answer is not to mold yourself, but to reclaim yourself? Because when you speak from a place of inner alignment, you don't just say words, you transmit something, a frequency, a presence. You become a mirror, and he cannot help but look. Now, there is something you must know. The man you awaken with these words may not be ready for the journey they require. He may feel fear. He may pull away. He may even test you subtly or overtly to see if you will collapse back into the version of yourself that pleases rather than stands. And this is where many women falter. They interpret his retreat as failure, as a sign that they were wrong to speak their truth. And so they shrink again. They apologize for their radiance. They dilute themselves to feel safe. But you are not her. You do not dilute. You distill. You become more potent, more refined, more anchored. You understand that a man's fear is not your responsibility, but your response to it is your power. So when he pulls away, you don't chase, you don't collapse, you lean back, you hold the line. And without needing to say it, your very presence communicates, I am not here to soothe your ego. I am here to honor my soul. That is the kind of woman a man doesn't forget. Not because she begged for attention, but because she didn't. Not because she needed him, but because she chose herself. And choosing yourself is not isolation. It's elevation. When you embody this, when your words become an extension of your sovereignty, not a plea for it, then he has a choice. He can rise or retreat. But either way, you are no longer waiting. You are walking forward, whole, free. And that is when the real chase begins. There is a moment in every woman's life when she stands at a quiet crossroads, not between one man and another, but between who she's been and who she's becoming. It happens in the silence after heartbreak, in the pause between texts that never come, in the hollow ache of realizing she has bent too far, given too much, waited too long for someone to finally see her. And in that moment, she can either armor up numb, close off, pretend she doesn't care, or she can rise. Not in anger, not in vengeance, but in reclamation. This is the woman Jung spoke of, the individuated feminine. Not the girl who pleads, not the woman who performs, but the soul who has remembered herself through the fire of being forgotten. And she speaks differently. There is a certain phrase that leaves a man breathless, not because it wounds him, but because it awakens something in him that has been long asleep. I don't need you to choose me, Psy, I've already chosen myself. To the untrained ear, it sounds cold, but to the man who has depth, it's a revelation. Because this is not rejection, it is release. It is a woman standing in the temple of her own self-worth, saying, I will not barter my value for crumbs of attention. I will not contort to fit your delay in deciding. I am the chooser now. This flips the entire dynamic of modern dating on its head, because so often, women, brilliant, soulful women, are trapped in a loop of hoping to be picked, performing, proving, playing small so as not to threaten his sense of control. But the moment you truly choose yourself, something irreversible happens. Your energy shifts. Your gaze changes. Your presence no longer seeks validation, it radiates certainty, and that is magnetic beyond measure. You see, men are not moved by beauty alone. They are surrounded by beauty, but they are shaken by presence, by essence, by the woman who no longer asks, am I enough? But declares, I am already whole. That declaration doesn't need to be loud. In fact, it's often quiet, whispered in the spaces where you used to over-explain, or chase, or justify. In those moments you become art. The kind of art that makes a man stop scrolling, stop searching, stop playing, because he senses there is something sacred here. And sacred things are not easily obtained. But understand this, when you choose yourself, you will trigger the parts of him that still rely on control. He may call you difficult. He may label you too much. He may say he's confused, but what he's really feeling is disarmed. Because you have removed the leverage, you've taken away the game. You've shifted the axis of power from his validation to your embodiment. This is the psychology of feminine empowerment. It doesn't scream, it shifts. It doesn't manipulate, it mirrors. It doesn't chase, it calls forth. And some men will not be able to rise to that call. Their inner boy will panic, their ego will retreat, their unhealed wounds will lash out. Let them. You are not here to be everyone's mirror. You are here to be yourself. And the man who is ready, who is done playing, done running, done hiding, will recognize you. He will feel not just attraction, but remembrance. Because you are the woman who chose herself. Again and again, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. And in doing so, you become the woman he cannot stop thinking about. Not because of how you made him feel about himself, but because of how you made him feel about you. So pause, take a breath. Let these words sink into the bones of the girl inside you who once believed she had to earn love. She was wrong. You don't have to earn it. You only have to embody it. Because the moment you do, the chase begins not outside you, but within you. Picture this. A man stands before a woman who does not flinch. She doesn't lean in when he pulls away. She doesn't shrink to make him feel larger. She doesn't twist herself into a shape that fits his comfort. She simply remains fully in her presence, fully in her truth, like a storm that does not beg to be understood. And in that moment, something ancient stirs inside him. Not just desire, not just admiration, reverence, because here is a woman who knows something most do not. That power isn't in performance, it's in presence. And the words she speaks come not from fear or performance, but from the very marrow of her being. She looks him in the eye, soft and unshaken, and says, "I feel safest when I'm true to me." These words don't scream independence. They whisper something far more radical: sovereignty. In a world that teaches women to prioritize everyone else's needs above their own, this simple phrase becomes a form of rebellion, a quiet revolution, a declaration that her inner compass matters more than his reactions. And that is the moment he realizes she cannot be owned, she cannot be manipulated, she cannot be won over through effort or charm, because she has already found the only thing that truly matters: herself. There's a kind of beauty in that clarity. The woman who lives by it becomes unforgettable, not because she forces herself into a man's life, but because she no longer compromises her peace to be in it. He begins to feel a pull that is not lust, but longing. Not for her body, though, that too, but for her center, her stillness, the sense that being near her demands truth, because she cannot fake her feelings. She cannot pretend to be okay when she isn't. And most of all, she cannot betray herself to make him feel more secure. This makes her terrifying and irresistible. And here lies the psychological shift most never speak of. A woman's deepest power is not in her ability to give endlessly, but in her ability to withhold what costs her her soul. That power shakes something loose in the masculine psyche. It forces a man to confront his own evasion-she's patterns of disappearing, his fear of commitment, his addiction to validation, because the woman who feels safest when she is true to herself will never build her world on his inconsistency. She is not waiting at the threshold, hoping he finally grows up. She's already walking through the door with or without him. And this doesn't mean she is cold. In fact, it's the opposite. Her warmth is earned. It is given not from lack, but from overflow. She chooses, not chases. She speaks, but never begs. She feels deeply, but she does not abandon herself in the name of feeling loved. This is the essence of Jung's individuation, when the feminine stops seeking completion outside herself and begins integrating her own masculine structure, protection, purpose. When she no longer needs a man to save her, because she has already become her own sanctuary. And from this place, when she speaks these words, "I feel safest when I'm true to me," they carry the weight of 1,000 lifetimes of women who were told their truth was too much. And now, she is done shrinking. This is not a script to follow. This is a frequency to embody. Because if you speak these words to manipulate, they will fall flat. But if you live them, if you let them anchor into your bones, then they become not just words, they become alchemy. He will feel it, even if he doesn't understand it, even if he runs from it. And when he is ready, when his own anima has awakened, he will not return for the version of you that needed him. He will return for the woman who chose herself and never looked back. If these words are stirring something inside you, something sacred, something long buried, don't ignore that. You are not alone in this becoming, and there's more waiting for you. Let this channel be a mirror, a guide, a sanctuary. Subscribe not just to follow, but to remember. And yet, even now, part of you might still hesitate, because to choose yourself is not without grief. There is a mourning that comes with no longer abandoning yourself. a quiet ache that echoes in the places where you used to compromise just to keep someone near. When you finally stop chasing, when you stop pouring into someone who only ever met you halfway, there is a space left behind wide, echoing, unfamiliar. That space is sacred. It is the chrysalis before the becoming, but it doesn't always feel empowering at first. It can feel like emptiness, like loneliness, like you've made a mistake. The parts of you conditioned to equate love with sacrifice may scream in protest. They may whisper, "You're asking for too much. You're being too hard. You'll end up alone." But these voices aren't truth. They're trauma. They are echoes of a world that taught women their value lies in being chosen, not in choosing themselves. That silence must be filled. That boundaries mean rejection. That longing must always be answered. And yet here you are, sitting in the space you once feared. And what happens next is everything. Because when you no longer fill the silence with self-doubt, something deeper begins to speak. Your intuition, your essence, your inner woman. She is not afraid of space. She thrives in it. She waits patiently behind every version of you that tried to please, to perfect, to perform. And now, she is stepping forward. She is the woman who doesn't need to scream to be heard, who doesn't need to explain why she walked away from something that didn't honor her, who doesn't need to prove her worth, because her very presence is the proof. And this, beloved, is where attraction becomes transformation. You are no longer seeking to be desired. You have become desire itself, not because you've hardened, not because you've stopped wanting love, but because you've remembered that love begins with you. And anything that requires you to betray yourself is not love, it's survival dressed as devotion. So let him chase. Let him feel the absence of your overgiving. Let him sit in the discomfort of not being able to control your heart with breadcrumbs of attention. Let him miss you, not just the you who responded instantly or said yes when you meant no, but the you who speaks now with clarity, grace, and unwavering self-regard. Because the man who is ready, who is truly ready, will not just chase for conquest. He will pursue with purpose. He will step forward, not to possess you, but to meet you, to meet himself through you. For that is what true union is. Not need, not ownership, but reflection. He will see the space you've carved for your truth and realize that he must do the same. He will feel the depth in your voice and know that shallow love will never satisfy him again. He will recognize in you not a fantasy, but a force. The feminine force that does not ask, "Will you love me?" but instead whispers, "Can you hold me without needing to fix me? Can you witness me without shrinking? Can you stand in your own truth without demanding I abandon mine? And most of all, can you stay when I do not chase?" The answer to that will reveal everything. But here's the beauty. You no longer need the answer to feel whole, because now you know the chase was never about him. It was always about remembering you. Somewhere deep in the unconscious, in the shadowy chambers of memory and myth, the archetype of the woman who remembers lives. She is not defined by the way others see her. She is not created from applause or male desire. She is shaped by silence, refined by solitude, forged in the sacred tension between longing and letting go. And now, she is awakening in you. Because once you've spoken those three truths, I trust myself more than I trust your words. I don't need you to choose me, I've already chosen myself. I feel safest when I'm true to me. You do something irreversible. You cross a threshold. You're no longer in the realm of needing to be understood. You are now in the realm of being known first by yourself, and only then by others. But here's what few will tell you. This kind of knowing is costly. It costs you your illusions, your stories, the versions of yourself you crafted just to be loved. You cannot carry them with you into the woman you are becoming. They are too small, too fragile, too rooted in fear. And yet, they will cling. They will whisper, "What if he doesn't come back? What if you're too much now? What if you never find someone who can hold you this way?" And you'll feel it, the ache of your inner child, the sting of old abandonment wounds, the craving for external confirmation that you are still lovable. But here's the pivot point. You pause. You do not move from that place of fear. You breathe into it. You stay with it. And then you answer not with begging, not with bargaining, but with a stillness that says, "Even if no one chooses me today, I choose myself." This, more than anything else, is what makes a man chase you, not because you've become unattainable, but because you've become whole. You've stopped orbiting around his availability. You've returned to the center of your own life. And he feels that shift like a current. He may test it. He may poke the edges, wondering, is she really serious? Will she come running if I pull away? But when you remain still, when you don't collapse into reaction or chase or over-explaining, something begins to happen in him that no logic can fully explain. His ego may resist, but his soul begins to listen, because your presence is no longer about being pleasing, it is about being true. And nothing is more magnetic to a man who is ready than a woman who has nothing to prove. This kind of feminine embodiment cannot be faked. You don't pretend to trust yourself, you become a woman whose entire life reflects that trust. Your no becomes loving. Your silence becomes sacred. Your distance becomes a mirror, not a punishment. And in that mirror, he sees everything, his own avoidance, his own hunger, his own unfinished work. Some will run from it, but the one who is meant, the one who is worthy, he will rise. He will chase you not because you are playing hard to get, but because he sees that he must become more to stand beside you. He will pursue not to possess you, but to witness the woman who never begged him to be ready, only invited him to meet her in truth. That invitation is still open, but it is no longer spoken with desperation. It is offered in stillness, in sovereignty, in self-honoring. And there is no force more beautifuler, more powerful than a woman who speaks her truth and doesn't flinch in the silence that follows. That woman, she is unforgettable. In the silence that follows your truth, something ancient begins to realign. It may not look like much on the surface. There are no fireworks, no grand gestures, no immediate validation. But deep in the unconscious, a ripple begins. A man who once took your presence for granted begins to feel the weight of your absence, not because you stormed out, not because you punished him, but because you withdrew your energy, quietly, completely, without drama-only dignity. He begins to sense the shift, not in your words, but in your frequency. Where there was once urgency, there is now peace. Where there was anxiety, stillness. Where there was need, now stands choice. And this sacred withdrawal of your energies, what most women never allow themselves. They speak their truth, but then immediately chase after reassurance. They say, "I won't settle," and then compromise just to avoid loneliness. They declare, "I'm done," only to reopen the door the moment he knocks. But not you, because you understand now that your words lose power when your actions contradict them, that sovereignty is not a performance, is a practice. You don't just say, "I choose myself." You show it in the way you stop engaging in cycles that hurt you, in the way you protect your peace, in the way you sit in solitude without collapsing into despair. And it is in this embodiment that the final alchemy happens. The anima in him begins to stir. Carl Jung taught that every man carries an inner feminine anima that shapes how he experiences women. But she is not fully developed until he meets a woman who challenges his projections. A woman who doesn't shrink to fit his ideal, but stands rooted in her reality. You become that mirror, not by arguing, not by teaching, simply by being. And when you stop softening your edges to make him comfortable, he is forced to confront the parts of himself that have never matured. This is why your truth matters more than your charm, why your clarity cuts deeper than your beauty, because you are no longer offering him a fantasy, you're offering him a mirror, and in that mirror, he sees the boy in him who still seeks approval, and the man he could become if he chose to rise. Some will break under that reflection. They will call you cold, detached, unyielding. They will say you've changed. But the man who is truly ready, he will not run. He will chase, and not for sport, not out of ego, but because he recognizes you, not as a game to be won, but as a woman who cannot be bought, persuaded, or seduced out of her truth. He will return not begging, not apologizing just to reset the cycle, but ready to meet you in the same depth from which you spoke. And if he does not, you will not break, because you have already remembered your worth is not dependent on who stays. Your peace is not contingent on his readiness. Your power is not tethered to his pursuit. You are already whole, already chosen, already home. And this, more than anything, is the paradox. The moment you stop needing him to chase you is the moment he must. There's a kind of silence that feels like surrender, not the surrender of giving up, but the sacred surrender of letting go, of no longer gripping, forcing, manipulating, or contorting yourself to hold something that no longer holds you. This is the silence where you meet your truest self. It's the silence where you realize the chase was never really about him. It was about your own healing, about remembering who you were before you believed that love had to be earned by sacrificing your truth. Now you know, it doesn't. Love, the kind that endures, expands, and elevates, begins not with pursuit, but with presence. And once you return to that presence, you discover something astonishing. There's no need to convince anyone of your worth, because the woman who knows her worth does not perform. She does not play roles. She simply is. Her boundaries are no longer defenses. They are declarations. Her solitude is no longer a punishment, it is her sanctuary. Her voice is no longer shaped by approval, it is sculpted by truth. And when she speaks, the world adjusts, including him. Maybe he circles back. Maybe he finally sees what he was too blind to recognize. Maybe he's ready, now ready to meet her, not as a boy craving validation, but as a man capable of love that does not demand self-betrayal. But maybe he doesn't. Maybe the chase ends not with him at your door, but with you walking through another. And that's the final lesson, because when you embody these words, not just speak them, but live them, you stop waiting for anyone to complete the story. You become the story. The narrative shifts. You are no longer the woman wondering if she's enough. You are the woman who knows. She knows that her vulnerability is her strength, not her weakness. She knows that her emotional depth is not a liability, it's a gift. She knows that being too much for some men is simply proof that she is meant for more. She does not fear the chase ending, because she was never chasing a man to begin with. She was chasing the parts of herself that she abandoned to be loved. And now those parts have returned. Now she is whole. And when a whole woman walks into a room, into a relationship, into her life, everything changes. Men sense it. They don't know how, but they do. She is not asking to be chosen. She is choosing, with grace, with discernment, with unwavering devotion to her truth. And for the man who is ready, truly ready, this isn't intimidating. It's electrifying, because a whole woman invites a man to become whole himself, not through words, but through who she becomes when she stops chasing anything but her own alignment. That is when he chases, not the surface, not the body, not the performance. He chases the presence, the stillness, The woman who no longer needs his validation to feel valuable, and when he finally arrives, if he does, he will not ask her to shrink, to wait, to make herself more palatable. He will ask only this: can I meet you where you already are? And the beauty is, you won't need him to. You will already be enough whether he arrives or not, because you have finally returned to the most sacred relationship of all, the one between you and you. And now, there is only stillness, not the hollow kind you once feared, where absence echoed like a punishment, but the rich, sacred stillness of a woman who has come home to herself. She no longer begs for breadcrumbs. She no longer twists herself into softness just to be held. She no longer flinches when love withdraws, because she understands true love does not require self-abandonment. And in this stillness, in this radiant inner quiet, she hears what she could not hear before, the steady heartbeat of her own becoming. She is no longer performing. She is no longer proving. She is simply being, and in that being, she becomes undeniable. Let him chase. Let the ones who never saw her depth remember her in their silence. Let them ache for the mystery they dismissed. Because the woman who speaks from soul does not echo in memory like a line, she echoes like a lesson. He will remember the one who said, I trust myself more than I trust your words, and in doing so, revealed his inconsistency. He will remember the one who said, I don't need you to choose me, I've already chosen myself, and in doing so, exposed his indecision. He will remember the one who said, I feel safest when I'm true to me, and in doing so, summoned a standard his old self could not rise to meet. But she is not waiting for his memory. She is not frozen in hope. She is moving forward, freely, fiercely, because her story is no longer about being chosen. Her story is about choosing, not from fear, not from loneliness, but from a place so whole, so holy, that anything less than truth cannot survive in her world. She has burned the old scripts, the rules written in desperation, the love defined by loss. And now, from the ashes, she rises sovereign, sacred and sure. A woman like this doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't settle. She stands. She softens, not to be consumed, but to transform. She speaks, not to be heard, but to resonate. And in her presence, he remembers the kind of man he could be. This is not seduction. This is invocation. She is not here to win him. She is here to awaken him. And if he rises, if he meets her in his own truth, then they will not dance the same old steps. They will begin something new, something conscious, something clean, something earned. But if he cannot rise, if he retreats into safety, avoidance, or ego, she will not follow. She will not fold. She will not fracture, because she is already full, already worthy, already whole. And in that wholeness, she becomes the woman who no longer waits to be chosen. She becomes the woman who chooses. If this truth stirred something in you, something deep, something ancient, don't ignore it. Let it move you. Let it wake you. And if you're ready to keep walking this path, to remember your power, to reclaim your voice, to rise from every version of you that ever settled, then this space is for you. Subscribe not just to follow, but to walk beside other women awakening too. We're not here to chase. We're here to become.